right, here we are live. Yay! Well, welcome everybody. I'm so glad you're here viewing us live. I am Reverend Abigail Schairer, and I have my co-host here, Stephanie Ann, and we're going to be introducing ourselves in just a moment with our special guest, Cassandra Rae, Kagak. And but before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and pray us in. So, I am so grateful to be here in this place, knowing that we are all in different locations and yet we are all connected, not just by the internet, but we're all connected by the infinite great creator, the one thing, the infinite everything. And I recognize and know the oneness that is here present within each and every one of us. And I also recognize and know that that oneness does not mean sameness, that truly we are like individual facets of the great expression of Source. I love and appreciate each facet, the rainbow of colors, of people, of identities that each and every one of us contain within ourselves. That's a reflection of that one thing. And so I celebrate this time together and our candid conversations about diversity, knowing that each and every one of us are blessed, both in our comments, our questions, our curiosities, and in the revelation that happens within each and every one of us here. I'm so grateful to know that this time is blessed, it is sacred, and it is holy, and I am grateful. And so it is. All right. Well, I am Reverend Abigail Schairer, and I am the Associate Minister here at Center for Spiritual Living, Seattle. I'm going to introduce myself with my identities first off. And so I want you to know that I identify as a white woman. My ethnicity is German, Irish, and Prussian. I am 44 years old. I'm a lesbian. I have a master's degree in education. I would consider myself middle class, and my body is able-bodied. My body size is average, and I am married to a woman who is a Mexican American citizen. And I would consider my spiritual identity as spiritual and interfaith. Although I was, my religion of origin is Christian, so I do have that as my main education and upbringing. With that, I'm going to hand this over to my lovely co-host, Stephanie Ann Johnson, and they will take it away.
Hello, I'm Stephanie Ann Johnson. I identify as a they, them type of a person. As the binary doesn't really appeal to me outside of a means of expression as an art form. I am 38 years old. I am a musician. I am an artist. I'm a broadcaster. I'm a poly person. I have one partner in Portland. And I mean, spiritually, I was kind of like in the evangelical like soup or whatever growing up. But as an adult, especially in finding CSL, I'm a spiritual seeker. Whatever the answer might be, I'm enjoying this portion of my life as a seeker, as somebody who is actively looking for the good and finding it.
Yay, thank you. And I'm really excited about our special guest today, Cassandra Rae, Kagak. I've known her as Cassandra Rae for, I don't know, I think like 20 years we've known each other. And she's an amazing human being on this planet, and she's worn many, many hats besides a friend of mine. She's been a life coach a therapist, a minister. I just found out that she's worked in accounting and healthcare. I mean, what hasn't she done? I don't know. And I'm really, really grateful just to acknowledge, especially that this particular brainchild of Candid Conversations about Diversity really was, the genesis was her. It's her baby, and it's been really delightful. If you watched our former series, she and I were co-hosts together, and she came up with the format and the identities and all of it, and was gracious enough to let me kick this off on a series number 2, co-hosting with Stephanie Ann. But I do want to acknowledge that truly she is the brainchild of this conversation and how we're creating it together. And I just really appreciate her for that. So yeah, Cassandra, would you like to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your identities?
Yeah, thank you. And I want to start off by saying that I identify as Inupiaq. I am Alaska Native, and my dad is Inupiaq, and my mom is white. And so I also identify as biracial, which is its own experience in and of itself. And I am the third daughter of Jacob Ayuvik Kagak and of Connie Regina Brick. And probably next in line, although I didn't plan on doing this in like order of importance to me, but I would also say that one of my biggest identities is that I am one of 3 daughters. And interestingly enough, my sister's initials in order of birth are NBC. And so we've kind of just always been NBC as soon as I came along. And that has definitely been one of the biggest factors, forces in life that has shaped me. I was born into an evangelical fundamentalist Christian faith, also known as American Baptist. My grandmother is Southern Baptist, and I did also participate in Southern Baptist Church as a child and as an early teenager. Just circling back to my identities, just gonna kind of leave that. There's a lot that I feel like just talking about being associated with Southern Baptist, I feel like that brings a lot into the space. And so I'm feeling that right now, the weight of that. So just catching my breath for a moment and circling back to my identities. I am cis, which means that the gender I was assigned at birth aligns with my gender identity, and I use she, her pronouns. My life has had a wide range of experiences, and I feel like those experiences also change my identities. Because there was a time when I was homeless with my family, and I was raised on welfare and living in subsidized housing. My mom did go to school and become a nurse, and that did change our life. It changed our social economic class. I would say we moved from being poor and we moved into lower middle class. I was definitely financially independent the moment I turned 18. I still living at home, but paying rent. And then I went off and got married and became a mom. So that's another identity that I have as a married, divorced, single parent, and now remarried with a blended family. And I put myself through college. My daughter went to college with me at UC Berkeley, and I do now have a master's degree in counseling psychology that I got from the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology in Palo Alto. So definitely a high level of education, and, married to my amazing, wonderful husband, Will, now, and really, you know, working to build a life together. And we're very financially well off at this point in our life. And so it's quite a range from where I started, the whole gamut here. So I've kind of had that experience in a lot of different spaces and places. So definitely feeling that financial security now, and also my proximity to whiteness. My husband is white. I'm very light skinned. And there's this thing that sometimes we refer to as like the one drop. Like if you have anything in you aside from anything that's Eurocentric, then you're no longer white. So I don't know if white folks actually understand that fully. So that is also why my main identity is Native and Indigenous. And really, really lately feeling very blessed by that, hence my name change, going back to my father's name of Kagak. I'm really, you know, identifying now primarily. I feel like my identity used to be more biracial, and now I feel like my identity has really shifted, and now I'm a Inupiaq. So I'm gonna just pause there because I feel like I could keep talking. Let me know if I missed an identity that you want me to touch upon. But I will just add, you know, woman, female, and all of the oppression and privilege that comes with that.
Yeah, and so just so everybody knows, the last name of Kaguk is new for Cassandra, and so for me, I was like, wait, you have a new last name. Before we were doing, you know, when we were first meeting online, I'm like, what is that about? So that's very cool that you're reclaiming your identity of now. Inupiaq, is that considered, you're gonna have to, you know, because Native American is usually like is that the whole, I don't know a lot about like Native Americans in, let's say, Canada or other countries, or is that still an identities like I'm Native American, or is it something else?
Absolutely. Oftentimes we refer to Native American, Alaska Native, and Hawaii Native. We kind of have these kind of classifications because being Indigenous in the lower 48 is a different experience than being Indigenous in Alaska and being Indigenous in Hawaii. They're very unique, and I would say that, you know, so much of it is around our relationship to land. And also when you live, my family's from the Arctic. My dad was born in Wainwright, Alaska, and lived out the majority of his life in what we now call Inupiaq in Alaska, was known as Barrow, but recently also went through a name change, kind of reclaiming the place's indigeneity, because it's so remote that it's definitely colonized. However, it's more like two cultures living side by side, because of that distance, because it's so far removed, and the weather is so extreme. It's the land of the midnight sun, where it doesn't set in the summer and it doesn't rise in the winter. And there's still what's called subsistence living, which is essentially hunting and whaling in the land. And while a lot of folks are Christian, that our indigenous, like, spiritual practices are still very much alive in everyday culture. So it's much different when you think about the experience of being Native American in the lower 48, where there's so many more white folks. And it leads to a different kind of experience for Native folks. And I will just say that I was just looking up just this morning randomly, I was looking up the demographics in the place where I was born is Anchorage, Alaska. And I was just looking up the demographics, and it's only about 9.5% Native American. It's about 65% white. However, when I was looking at the place I live now is Everett, Washington, it's about 75% white and about 1.5% Native, which is much like 1% or less than 1% Native in the lower 48 is very, very common. So even though it's only 9.5%, maybe almost around 10%, what it means is when I'm out in town, I'm going to a restaurant or out, or to a grocery store in Anchorage, I will see Native folks and we recognize each other, right? I will see other Native Alaskans. I don't have that experience here in Everett. And that's a huge difference in the way in which I would say we experience life.
Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. And bringing that awareness, because as a person in the minority in where I'm living, but not in the global majority, which is people of color, are the global majority. I don't even have to think about that because it doesn't necessarily affect my day-to-day world. And so I just want to acknowledge that. And I appreciate you bringing that into my conscious awareness. So.
Yeah. If I could just say one more thing about that, it just comes to mind when you think about, as a white person, going out to run errands, going to the bank and to the grocery store and like just seeing other white folks, you're seeing yourself reflected in the environment. And that's just normal. That's just how life is. I want to also just point out that, it's not just that I don't see other Native folks who look like me when I go out in the world. I also just want to acknowledge that, especially where I'm living, in that there is a large influence of Proud Boys type activity in Snohomish County. And so, and whatever all of that means. If you don't know what that means, please Google it. I'm not going to explain it here. But I want to also say that sometimes what that means as a brown woman going out in the community is if I walk into a place and I see white folks, which of course happens all the time, in my mind, I wonder, am I safe here? Is this a safe place for me? And so, where white folks might see safety in other white folks, as a brown person, I look and it might not be safe for me to be in this place or to be authentic or to be fully expressed. And so there's a much different impact on my psyche, on my sense of self, in that when I see other white folks, I have to wonder, am I safe? And I want to also just extend that into places of spirituality, where we can have an assumption that those are safe, that they're welcoming spaces. But I just want to say that as a person of color, that is not my assumption when I go into a space, even in a spiritual context, that I still have to hold that question, am I safe here? And that question is answered every single time I walk into the space. It's not a one-time thing. It's not like, oh, okay, I've vetted this place, I'm good, I can be my whole self here. It's a day by day, moment by moment. Every single interaction is going to show me if I'm safe, if I'm understood, if I'm welcomed. And I think what can be so harmful about that is people can be super well-meaning and simply just unconscious about the impact of race and identity in spaces. And that being said, it can be even more harmful at a church or at a spiritual center, because it's a place where we're like, maybe this is a place where I can be my whole self, where I can be safe. Maybe this is a place of belonging. And when it isn't, that's rough. Stephanie, you're muted. Please.
Yeah. I'm nodding. I'm nodding furiously. I wholeheartedly agree. Being a Black person in a sighted world, when you walk into a new space, am I safe here? I just came from 4 or 5 days in Stanley, Idaho, for a music festival, and yeah, it's real rough. You know, there's thousands of people here. There's thousands of people at this event, and I saw 4 Black people that I did not know that were in the audience. And then there were, you know, amid like 30 bands over what, like Thursday through Sunday, 30 to 40 different bands. There was myself, a percussionist, one band, the Black Tones, Shayna Shepherd. Yeah, there were five of us, and that's constantly on my mind. To what you were saying, Cassandra, about the influence of the Proud Boys, and like seeing and feeling the energy of that. You know, I live down here in Tacoma. It's scary because you never know. You know, a lot of people tend to assume that the Pacific Northwest is, you know, oh, you know, we're hippies and lumberjacks or whatever, and they, you know, they see our rainbow crosswalks on Capitol Hill and think we're all gay and happy. And I just need you to know, you get 10 to 15 minutes off of I-5 in any direction, and there are the Trump signs. There are, you know, the stars and bars, as it were. And you know, when I see American flags these days, I wonder, like, what kind of American I'm getting, right? I come from a military family, and my grandmother's house had an American flag posted on it every day for as long as I lived there with her. Mm-hmm. And yet, am I going to meet these other Americans who are like, you know, thank you for your service? Or am I going to meet these other Americans who want me to go somewhere or do something else? You know, it can be very stressful to constantly worry about your safety based on where you are. And then, of course, there's the masking. And then, of course, there's the, you know, if I just put this face on and try to look as non-threatening as possible, you know, is this going to go faster? Is this going to go better for me? If there are, you know, things that I don't say, is that going to make everyone in this room more comfortable? But what about me? Right? So I definitely feel you on that, Cassandra. And thank you so much. The way that you explained it, I could not have done better.
And I think this is really important, because our next question was about spirituality and our identities. And what I'm hearing, there's 2 themes. One is safety and the second is belonging. And I work in a community, and we're like, everybody's welcome. You know, we're here because everybody belongs. And I might say that at the pulpit, and that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody in the community is behaving in alignment with that. And so my curiosity, because I do want to create a safe space of safety, I want to have a question, but first I'm going to have a statement. First of all, I know that it's incumbent on me as a leader. What Stephanie Ann was reflecting about, like, there's nobody like me here. Like, people who are in leadership, it's our jobs to make sure, if we say, wow, we're a place where people belong, that we actually have people in leadership or invisible spaces that are different. So when somebody walks in the door, they can see various identities and actually go, oh, there are different people here in leadership or on the slides or represented at the table. So that's really important. But I'm curious for both of you on what do you think in spiritual spaces creates a sense of belonging for you?
Cassandra?
Stephanie, I was like, you want to jump in first? I'm happy, but I also I'd love to hear from you.
Okay. My goodness, I am a creature of habit. So sometimes the thing that helps me feel the safest in a space is knowing what's going to happen, right? I'm going to get there. I'm going to sit. I'm going to get the order of service. We're going to do this rehearsal. Then we're going to go through the service and it's going to go like this. There's going to be a break. And we're going to do it again. And then I'm going to go home. Right. So for me, as somebody who is some kind of neurospicy, like that gives me a little bit of sense of calm when there is a plan and I've seen the script and it's in order and it looks like this. So some of it is the sameness of that helps me feel comfortable. Another thing that really helps me feel comfortable in spiritual spaces is that if I know that I'm on the entertainment staff, then I know like how I'm supposed to act, how I'm supposed to interact with people, because I've been performing for so many years that foundational idea, of being a kind of a host is there for me. I'm really grateful that a lot of the time that I do spend in spiritual spaces, I do spend, doing music, which for me is definitely a place of prayer. So yeah, what do you think, Cassandra?
Yeah, thank you for going first, Stephanie. I appreciate that. You gave me some minutes to like really kind of let the question ruminate inside of me, because I think you all know, you here co-hosts, that the word safety also right now is very layered about what does that mean? Is that what we're going for? Probably not. So what I'd like to offer is a couple of things. One is, if you say that you're a place of belonging, and I hope that every church and spiritual center says they're a place of belonging, a place where you're welcomed and where you belong, then you absolutely must have an understanding around the experience of people who are not like you. Because you don't know what you don't know. And, so I have totally been a perpetrator of microaggressions in my life. Okay. And what that means is that I have said things that have othered people when I did not mean to other them. I thought I was being nice and I wanted to learn about them. And I totally said, I'm bleeping out my cuss words right now. I've totally said some really crappy shit to people. Oh, I tried to bleep it out. I've said some crappy things to folks trying to connect with them. So I think if you are going to say that you're a place of belonging, then that does require some education, some very conscious education about understanding the experiences of people who aren't like you. And in my personal value system, that means an ongoing education. That doesn't mean I take one class and I'm done. That means ongoing. How am I going to continue to cultivate this consciousness of inclusion and of welcome and belonging? And what lately that has meant for me is also of care. It's a consciousness of care. How can I care for folks? How can I offer that care in a way that invites them into transformation? So this is kind of my second answer to that. Whereas even claiming this is a place of transformation, and what that means is that when we shine a light on limiting beliefs inside of yourself, you are going to feel pain. It is painful. And this is a place where we are holding space for that pain to come to the surface preferably in a way that does not harm others, so that we can transform that into a consciousness of good that not only makes a space more welcoming and belonging for folks to come into the space, but it is going to change your life. Like when you yourself become more welcoming to Black, Indigenous, and people of color, you change the way you feel about yourself, about the world, and about what's important to you. And so it changes your life. And that's what we're here for. People are coming to spiritual centers, and I would just say specifically for Center for Spiritual Living, so many folks are coming for refuge from other religion that has been harmful in their lives. When I just want to say that maybe CSL can be a place of refuge for people of color. I will say right now it is not, but you're welcome. And it could be, right? It could be a place. And we know, especially people at CSL, we know that change happens through consciousness. So this is a work in consciousness where we get to root out these limiting ideas about who we are, about who others are. And we truly get to live into a world that works for everyone. In order to understand that, you need to know how the world is working for other folks, specifically for Black, Indigenous, and people of color.
Yes. And not to bring it back to the Christ of it all, but you mentioned this idea, this concept that when we investigate and open up those limiting beliefs inside of ourselves, that there is the pain, right? But there is also life after pain. There is the possibility of healing. There is that hope. And I personally wish that I knew more white people that were on that hopeful tip. Because I don't. One of the other things that I feel like it's very, very important for people of privilege to understand, even in spiritual spaces, there are times when you do have to sit down and let somebody else talk. And if you are still occupying a pulpit for X amount of years, it may be for your personal glory, but what kind of beautiful transformation are you denying the people in your congregation with your unwillingness to let go and release and transform and become something else? That I think is really important, because I personally feel like having a little bit of a connection to last month, like on the same day as one of my favorite Pride celebrations, I got to participate in the Seattle University, their School of Divinity closed after 50 years. And so I got to go and sit in this incredible church service where, I mean, sure, there was a sermon in English, but also we did some of the readings in Spanish. We did some of the readings in Hebrew. We did some of the readings in Korean. There were some of the Catholics were there. The Lutherans were there. And I just felt like why isn't there more of this? I loved sitting in that chapel and being a part of this spiritual celebration that was calling on the divinity of so many different kinds of people. And, Abigail, I know you like to get interfaithy. So I'm just really hoping that we can do more of that at CSL, because I had a really wonderful, beautiful, life enriching experience being, special music for that day. And I'm just hoping to carry more of that forward.
Yeah, and before you jump in, because I know you are itching to say something, Abigail, because I know we are like fanning the flames in your heart, I want to circle back to one thing that Stephanie said that I want to highlight, that actually I think Abigail really embodies and is something that you've taught me, Abigail, over all of the years that I have known you, is that underneath that pain, when we talk about that pain coming up and out, and how you mentioned that there is so much light underneath that, absolutely, that is love moving through you, coming to the surface. And that love is what is transforming you, that is bringing this into your experience for healing, not just for yourself, but for the collective. And if we could just recognize that the responsibility is ours for personal and collective transformation. That is my responsibility. And I am going to be doing what I can in my life to support both of those things simultaneously. It is not one before the other. It is all of it at the same time, because that is the truth of this experience, is that love is at the center of all of it and wants to be known. And how can love be known? Through this work. That we are expanding love through this work.
I agree. And I have to say that the conversations that we had on our last series were really heart-opening for me. And there were many things that I wasn't aware of. And I was super grateful for the willingness of our featured guests to come on and speak their truth. And I think that is a really important thing to talk about, is speaking your truth in places where it may not be safe. I mean, like, you want to make sure that you are physically safe. And sometimes standing up and saying something is transformational. And I just want to also put that it's not, I do want to say it's not incumbent on the person who's not in power to be always educating the person that is in power. However, I do want to acknowledge all of the people who have done that for me, like especially the people who are in large bodies, who've educated me about what it's like to not fit in a chair, or not fit on an airline seat, or be judged for potluck on how much food they have on their plate. And I've had a friend who we were hanging out at the beach, and she's very, very beautiful, large body, and she was in a bikini and I was not. And I was like, I'm feeling insecure about my body. And I'm like, where is that coming from? Because she doesn't have that. And, if it weren't for people showing up in their authentic truths and being the most magnificent self, I may not have understood a greater beauty of the planet that is. So, even in my last class, we had a class where we had conversations about people who couldn't hear.
Can we pause for a second?
Yes.
Abigail? Thank you. And we can totally circle back to not hearing, which is also super important. Before we move off of body size, I would definitely like to say out loud, and this is uncomfortable, so I'm going to just prep you a little bit for that discomfort.
Okay.
in our transformation, in our process of transformation. I just want to call it out that what you were describing is fat phobia.
Yes.
And that's the word for it. When you are criticizing your body for its ripples, for its dimples, for its largeness, that's fat phobia. And I don't mean that that's just how fat phobia turned up in you, Abigail. And it turns up in me every single day. And it's not that it's not here. It is, I mean, you cannot live in a female body or in the America without, and I just even have to like reframe myself right here. You can't be living in the US and not have fat phobic stuff inside of you, because it is the air we breathe. It is the water we are swimming in. It's not about the fact that like, oh, like I'm not fat phobic, like I love my body and everybody's body and I'm body positive, and yeah, great. And it's here. It is here inside of us. And until, and the way we begin to root it out is goes, oh, I see some fat, that was fat phobic. that's my fat phobia, and I am just going to love myself right here. I'm going to love these thighs that I was criticizing. I'm going to love whatever it was, and just calling yourself on it with grace and compassion, and then just being like, and I'm committed to letting that go. It just reminds me of a conversation I had with somebody at one point, somebody very close in my life, and they were like, I'm totally fine with those gay people over there, but my child, I can't go to their wedding, and it's like, oh, that's homophobia. Mm-hmm. And it's like, no, that's not, I'm totally fine with gay. No, if you're not willing to go to a wedding because it's two women, that is homophobia. We do need to just call it what it is without shame, and and make that commitment to root it out of ourselves.
I love you speaking. I'm going to say calling me in, calling me in, because you're right. And I think that's what I was becoming aware of. It's like, I'm walking on the beach, and the thing was, it's like, I love her body. And so I'm like, what is that? Like, where is that in me where I'm like, why am I feeling insecure? And I'm loving what her body looks like, and yet I'm not feeling secure in my own body. And it was just a huge awareness for me. It was like, well, what is that? And where is that? And thank you for calling it out as fat phobia, because that is, again, I think you're right, inherent in America and in the beauty world, and and I have lots of people whom I love in my life who have struggled with being judged, and had people say terrible, mean things to them that has been so hurtful because of the size of their body, and I'm sure I take that in too. So that's a great awareness. Thank you. And it was the same thing when we were talking about like the hearing. Maybe it was not the same thing, but it was a different thing where I got an awareness about people in my class not being able to hear. And like, what are we doing on Zoom to help people hear? What are we doing on in different areas? Just recognizing that some people can't hear. Sometimes it's age related, sometimes it's not. And are we acknowledging that? And the same thing with just being aware. Like, we were having a minister meeting, a group of ministers, and one of these ministers that's in our region was like, it would be really nice if we had those little push things on the door so the door can open up for people in wheelchairs. And I'm like, I didn't even think of that. We have people who come in with different mobility devices, and we don't have that on our doors. It's just like, how come I didn't think of that before? Well, because I don't have to, but I do if I want to be that inclusive, welcoming, belonging person. And so I need to continue to educate myself and call myself out or call myself in, when I'm noticing it within myself, because that's just that thing that you were talking about on, that's what evolution is. That's where I go, okay, I can let that go. I can have an intention. I can be in a space of love, both for myself, what I've inherited, and make a different choice. Yeah. And choose to be different in the world.
And while you were talking, I was realizing that we have closed captioning on Zoom, and we have not had it on during our conversation. I turned it on while you were talking. I mean, I can see it on my end. Can you two see it on your end?
I can't, no.
I can't, but two things. One, I love everything you said about fat phobia. Oh my goodness. When we did the identities in the beginning, it is not lost on me that I did not mention the size of my body. I am wildly uncomfortable in my body. It is very weird to walk around in it. This is a odd meat suit. And one of the things that I do for myself, especially because I'm in entertainment, I've been backstage and I've seen all of the things and all of the people that use all of the things to make their bodies look all of the ways. And I have taken all those experiences, unfortunately, to even further uncomfortable spaces. So what I do for myself, because I know that I will be scrolling, I try to make sure that I follow fat people who I love, who have a message. I like to follow, especially people that are in movement in some kind of way. Jessamine Stanley is a really great one. If you want to get into, yoga for your body, Roz the Diva is another great lady to follow. She is a plus size pole dancer. And then there's also Hijabalicious, which is this beautiful, like, we are a Muslim, we are a practicing Muslim, we are wearing the hijab, and we are pole dancing, and we're talking about women's health. And like, I don't know about you, but like, I need that dose of micro learning in my day. I need that dose of diversity inside the diversity. I need that to feel like, I need that to feel good. One of the things that in my younger life, I worked on cruise ships. And so I got very accustomed to being in places where, 24 nationalities are represented in this group of people around me. And there are all kinds of conversations going on in Vietnamese, in Tagalog over there. There are some people speaking Spanish over here. There are some people from Mauritius over here, and I didn't even know that was a place. So it makes me much more comfortable to be in a place that feels multiculti, as it were, that feels like many people are expressing themselves. So I'm really grateful to be in this conversation. And I think
Yes.
the second thing I was talking about was, because you were talking about hearing. I also grew up with my stepdad, who from being in the Army was partially deaf. So I am absolutely accustomed to seeing the subtitles on absolutely everything. Also, for the purpose of learning languages, I think it's also a really great thing to watch a movie that you feel good about, and go ahead and put the subtitles on and then put them in Spanish. That's a really great way to give yourself a little boost of learning and to see how other people are experiencing that thing you experience. I like, especially in spiritual places, I think it's important to have other languages represented and other translations represented, because if we're going to be a center for spiritual living, if we're going to be a unity church and believe that God shows up in everyone differently individually, but we're not investigating the individual, what's that then?
Yeah.
Yes. And
so I just want to say that we're over time, so I'm gonna let you go, Cassandra, but just want to make that note there so we can continue on in a minute. Go ahead.
Absolutely. And I also thank you for that time check. I want to acknowledge, Stephanie, when you talked about, what it's like to be in your body at this time in your life, and the fact that you are a singer, songwriter, performer, on stage, where that is the thing that people are supposed to do, is to look at your body, to look at you and look at your body, and how much your talents and your purpose in life are putting your body in the shape and size that it is front and center in your life for the transformation and the entertainment of the rest of us who get to appreciate it. And I just wanted to acknowledge that, because I think maybe sometimes folks don't understand what it takes for people who have identities that are non-dominant within our society, the work that it takes us just to live our life, much less to shine on stage in the spotlight in our life, and what that means to us. Because I want to bridge us back to what we were talking about, that Steffi and I were talking about. When we go into a space, there's this question: am I safe here? Do I have to make myself smaller here to survive this space? And so that force that lives inside bodies of culture that says, get smaller, be more polite, don't say anything, that force is hundreds of years old, and it is living itself out, through us now. And there are courageous folks like Stephanie and myself who are like, I'm willing to do the work because I want the next person that comes in to not have to feel that as strongly as I feel it. So there's this connection between this. That's my personal process in my personal journey, that its purpose is for the collective. I am consciously, and this is an indigenous concept, that we are thinking about the next 7 generations. What we are doing now is impacting these next 7 generations. So my personal work is not just for me, it is for the people who come after me, and the importance of that we can all learn from that and appreciate what bodies of culture are going through in order to do what they're doing, especially if they're leading a space, singing in a space, teaching in a space, molding a space. They are doing more work than just preparing for it. I could keep going, but I'm going to pause.
I loved it.
Yeah. So we're gonna go on to just a quick where can we find you? What are you up to? Portion of our program here. So Cassandra, do you want to go first? You have a lot that you're up to, so I want to make sure that people find out about that.
I do. Yeah, thank you. I want to jump in with that because I was just thinking about this. Actually, after we started even this conversation, I was thinking about how my spirituality, my spiritual calling, my spiritual work, it has really called me to move into spaces of activism and of consciously dismantling systems of oppression and consciously creating new spaces for Black, Indigenous, and people of color to thrive. So I'm currently working with the Communities of Color Coalition based out of Edmonds in Snohomish County, just north of Seattle. And I am spearheading a planning committee. Gosh, I shouldn't even say spearheading. We are just co-creating this together because I work with an amazing team of folks. And we are co-creating the 11th annual North Puget Sound Conference on Race. And so this space is a space for Black, Indigenous, and people of color to gather, convene, recharge, learn about how to become, even how to tap into more ways of advocating for ourselves. And so that's happening on October 21st of this year. Just save the date. And I was also wondering about music. I wonder, Stephanie.
You could be in touch.
Yes. For sure. And the other thing that I am doing is I am on the leadership council of the Magnificence Collective, which is a CSL focus ministry co-founded by Reverends Ruth Littlejohn and Champion Fleming. And they are getting ready to offer a course through CSL's professional development on the Sum of Us. It's about healing racism with spirituality. I know I didn't say that correctly, and I apologize, but be on the lookout for this amazing course that's coming up, either in the fall of this year or winter of next year. I can't remember 100%, but that's what I'm up to right now.
I love that.
Yeah.
July 1st, so right around the corner, There is a tribute to Tina Turner that's being put on by the absolutely fabulous Shayna Shepherd. She organized it. It's kind of a star-studded evening, if I'm being really honest. So get your tickets July 1st at the Showbox. I'll be there. Shayna Shepherd will be there. Audra Boo from Fly Moon Royalty and also of Hotels will be there. Mirror Gloss is going to be there. I believe Maya Marie is going to be there. Tiffany Wilson is going to be there. We are going to turn up, and we are going to sing for and about and of the wonderful energy that is Tina Turner and everything that she gave to us, the next generation of people that have her job. So yeah, I'm very excited for that.
I love that. And the thing that I'm working on, I have a couple of projects, retreats that I'm working on. One is that we have at Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, we do CBAC all community camp. So anybody who wants to go to camp for a week with a bunch of spiritual people doing a variety of things. I'm running the education program. The whole theme is around joy. So if you want to go for a week at CBAC Conference Center, it's an amazing place to be. We do workshops, we do crafts, we do concerts and talent show, all kinds of things. So you can go for half the week or you can go for the full week. That is in August. You can check out our website, spiritualliving.org, for that. In addition, this is not quite yet advertised, but it is coming soon. On September 23rd, I'm going to be having a Sister Spirit Day retreat in person. So anybody who identifies as a woman, or if you identify as gender fluid or non-binary, you are welcome to come to the Sister Spirit Day retreat, and that will be at Center for Spiritual Living Seattle in person on September 23rd. So those are some projects in the future that I'm very excitedly working on, and I'm happy to welcome you all to. So with that, we're going to close with gratitude and a prayer request, and Stephanie Ann is going to pray us out. So what I am grateful for, I'm really grateful for this conversation, and thank you for the authenticity. And I honestly, I feel like this could have been maybe like an all day long conversation, like just so good, so many rich, juicy bits. So thank you so much for that. I'm so grateful for both of you and that energy. I'm also grateful for our intern, Sunny, who is behind the scenes talking with people on Facebook, which I really appreciate that she's doing that, our ministerial intern. And my prayer request really, gosh, I would love to, I want to be open to that greater good, that whatever, I don't know, I know you're doing this prayer, Stephanie, and so what Cassandra was talking about on how when we identify those places in ourselves, we open up to healing ourselves, which and therefore heals the planet. Like, I just want to be open to more of that so I can be of greater good in the world. So seeing those uncomfortable places, healing those uncomfortable places in me, and being willing to do that work. That's really what my prayer is for. And Cassandra, you want to go next?
Sure. And I would just say that, something pretty light here, not heavy at all, Stephanie, is just that, throughout my life, I have constantly felt this need to prove my worth and value. And, not even possible to prove or measure something immeasurable. And so what my, and I would say that so much of my work right now, and I didn't even mention it, how could I forget this? On my blog, I am currently writing 50 letters to a dear friend. If you're listening to this, you are a dear friend, over the next year before my 50th birthday in May of next year. The easiest way to find it is bravelyconnecting.com. It'll forward you to my personal website and blog. And so what I have learned about that is like, that's so much of my mission in the world too, is to reflect out people's worth and value, and just being willing to take that on, to say yes. I've been trying to say no to it for a long time. Just say yes to my purpose, even though it moves me into healing and discomfort, and knowing that that love underneath is carrying me so much stronger than any fear I might have.
Fantastic. I'm also grateful for this conversation. And I'm grateful for the way that these conversations have really expanded my mind spiritually, and also expanded my heart. I'm really grateful for this space. So Cassandra, thank you for the wonderful idea. Abigail, thank you for carrying it forward. I appreciate that. And let's start this prayer, if you would. Take a deep breath, please. Universal One, as the world changes, turns, and transforms, please be with us as we change, turn, and transform. Be with us as we learn, as we open ourselves, as we move, as we say yes to ourselves, as we grow, as we educate ourselves, as we make ourselves known. Thank you for the grace and beauty in this conversation. And as always, go with us into the rest of our days. Ashe. And so it is.
Ashe, and so it is. Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for joining us. I'll be checking on the comments later on after we sign off.